when I was preparing the taxes to print them, I noticed that the non-residential tax rate was incorrect. I think it happened when I was in the middle of saving files and transferring from one file to another file. In either case, the original non-residential tax rate was 5.9353. The correction is 6.3471. So it's an adjustment of 0.4118. So in total, the increase in tax revenue would be $73,037.97. So I thought with that amount of money that we needed to redo the tax bylaw. And that was the only rate that was incorrect. I triple checked all the other numbers, and all the other numbers are fine. It was just the non-residential one that was had a mistake in it. So if I'm looking at a $500,000 non-residential property, previously at the 5.9353 rate, the municipal portion only would have been $2,967.65. With the 6.3471 municipal portion, it goes up to $3,173.55, which is an increase of $205.90. So on individual properties, it's not that much of an increase. However, because there's a lot of money in non-residential, it does add up to the $73,000 in extra tax revenue. So I'm proposing that we actually adjust the tax bylaw to reflect the correct non-residential rate.
Okay. Any questions for Lori? No?
None for me.
Okay. Somebody want to make that motion then for bylaw 2021-06?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Okay, as recommended. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and that's carried. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Do we have Wendy West on the line or joined in? Yep. Not yet. Okay. Renewing the Crossfield United Church building lease agreement for another 2 years. Any questions, concerns?
So just to give you a little bit of background, I've been in discussions with Linda Gates. She's one of the trustees of the church, and they've provided me with an addendum to allow for a 2-year extension at the current lease rate. And the only other change we've made to the agreement is taking former CAO's name out of the agreement and adding mine as a contact.
And the only 2 questions that I have that came kind of not the night we had the discussion, but kind of came to me after, because I know that I talked to Linda Gates one time about us watering their lawn and their flower beds and stuff, and some of their sprinkler heads, they end up watering quite a bit in the street. And at that time, they were looking at basically zero-scape so that they wouldn't have to water. And I'm not sure where they're at with that, so that might be a question to ask. And then during the cold snap, I was out for a walk one day, and there was somebody working at the northeast corner of the building here. And when I had a chat with him, he indicated that there was a water tap there, and it had frozen and it was leaking. And there was quite a pile of ice out there, but I guess nobody really noticed that. So I'm not sure who's actually responsible for winterizing the outside taps and stuff, if that's us or if that's them. That might be a question worth asking as well. But as far as the amount and everything, I think we had that discussion with them, the 3 of us, and didn't see a problem with that. So we don't really have anywhere else to go at the present time. So.
No.
Okay. Somebody want to make a motion then that we extend that for another 2-year term? I'll make that a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and that's carried. Okay, we have Wendy on the, go ahead.
Or Wendy?
Welcome, Wendy. Do you want to give us your feedback?
Yeah, on our issue at the store. Okay, so we didn't realize there was actually an issue. until last week when my manager was unloading stuff that she had bought from wholesale into our door, and Trevor stopped and basically told her that she was in a no loading zone. We have an issue with that because we were never informed, first off, that there wasn't going to be a loading zone. We are an existing liquor store and we need our double doors for access for our trucks. So I'm not really sure what kind of agreement we can come to. I understand we had the revitalization. However, I don't understand how we're going to get our product in our doors.
Mustafa, do you want to present on behalf of the town?
Of course. Do you want me to present this one in particular and then go through the rest of them afterwards? Or?
Sure, yep.
For sure. So this request itself, so we did get an email as it relates to this complaint itself. So basically the main component of that being Barry stated that there was a promise made by myself that stated that that was not going to change and there was going to be a loading zone there. That kind of request we would typically put in the email just because that does have a significant cost impact and a significant design change throughout the design phases and throughout the open houses and everything like that. The concept plans are online, so at no point were the concepts indicating a loading zone itself. So when it comes to that, what we had asked was we asked Barry to provide any documentation that he might have related to the loading zone, whether that promise was made. We didn't find anything within our documentation for that promise itself. In regards to the discussion of the loading zone itself, we have had even a discussion with the business owner. So Barry is one of the business owners itself. We had a conversation. It was myself and our peace officer in relations to the loading zone itself. And basically, throughout our conversation, what we have stated is that there is no loading zone here. So if a truck does park here or loads here, it is up to the peace officer's discretion to decide how he wants to enforce the bylaw. That was relayed back to him. So that is basically our statement in regards to that. Again, this was something that council had looked at because there was a request made by the laundromat whether that loading zone could come back, and there is no room to actually place that loading zone. So as it relates to that request itself, the laundromat also had called us again to have a discussion about the north side parking where they wanted that to be designated as 2-hour parking. So we had a conversation with the pharmacy as well, the owners of the pharmacy, and basically the conclusion we came down to is we're going to keep that side as 45-minute parking as it was prior, test it out for the year to see what the impacts are. And if a change needs to be made to the time limit, we will do it the following year based on feedback received from both of the businesses. When we discussed how the parking is working out, the pharmacy said they really need those parking spots, so there can't be any allocations. So what they had requested on that side is that we're going to maintain that 45-minute parking on that side, and if a change needs to be made, it'll be made the following year. So as it relates overall, they also stated that these semi trucks that are coming in, it's actually blocking their business at 45-minute increments where people can't see their businesses and they are parking on oncoming traffic. That was a concern that the laundromat has brought to our attention. So again, it is from our understanding, it is bylaws, the bylaws officer's discretion on how he enforces that bylaw. So that's hard.
I just have one question before I turn it over to council for questions. Was it a loading zone before we did all the work?
Yes, it was.
Okay, all right. Councillor Knight, we'll start with you with questions.
Did we reach out to the businesses in general? Is it a typical standard or practice for the town to reach out to businesses when we're removing stuff like loading zones?
Yes. So as part of the downtown revitalization, we did extensive community engagement and business engagement. So we had different times allocated for the businesses where they can come and give their input, where it's just the businesses alone. As well, we went into the different businesses when the owners were available, basically saying, hey, here's the plan, what is your input? And if they weren't available at that time, back then it was our communications officer and our economic and development manager that went to every single business saying, hey, we understand you guys can't make the open houses. Here is our contact information. Let us know when you're available. We will stop by and get your feedback on it. So anyone that did reach out to us and that weren't able to attend, we did make time and try to get their input. So there was quite a significant amount of community and business engagement when it came to the configuration. So if we actually look at what the preliminary design looked like, which is all online compared to what's it progressed to, we can see the changes based on feedback we've received.
Do we have any documented information where we've sent to Barry and Wendy that we've asked and we've reached out, like something tangible that we can put down and say that we've reached out? Is there an email? Is there any information? Is there any tracking or accountability?
So
to
I
this?
would have to double check. We did have an email list where we sent out information to the businesses. I'd have to double check that email list to see whether Barry's or Wendy's email was on that list. So anybody that we did have emails for, we did send out emails. If they weren't, what we did was we went to the businesses and handed out letters to them stating this is our process. So we handed out letters to the businesses. So if any of the business owners weren't there and their managers were there, it'd be the manager's responsibility to give it to the owners, right? If we couldn't reach them by email.
From an engineer point of view, how many more stalls do we add on that north parking way?
So are we just looking at the road that where that
Well, like how many stalls do we have before and how many stalls do we have now minus the loading dock? What are we at compared before and after?
Are you comparing the road or are you comparing the whole project?
No, I'm comparing right on the street that we're talking about right here, like the 4 vertical slots that are across from the that are across on the pharmacy sides. And there were how many spots, like how many parking spots were there before and how many are there now?
So if you're looking just on the street itself,
Yep.
where it separates the pharmacy and the laundromat,
Yep.
The change in parking stalls were actually 0. So basically what we did was we transferred that parking stall over to the other side, it made it angle parking. So the difference in parking for that stretch of roads stayed about the same. So, and again, we only look at legal parking spots. So how we define legal parking spot is based on Alberta Transportation's and the safety standards itself, which indicate that the first legal parking spot has to be 5 meters away from an intersection itself. The radius of an intersection, sorry, not the actual intersection.
So we didn't add a single extra parking stall and we've impacted this client from losing their loading stall. Is that what we're saying?
So based on the drawings that were presented for the building itself, it indicated that the loading zone was supposed to be the back alley.
Okay.
That makes sense. So based on that documentation that we had, technically the loading zone for this building is in the back alley. So based on what was approved with the drawings and what we presented to the public, we were comfortable taking that loading zone and saying, you know, what was approved originally with the building is still suffice for this area.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Harris.
So you answered one of my questions, and I wasn't sure if it was to you, Mustafa, or to Merrill, but originally when the arches there was built,
Yes.
the idea and thought behind that was that the loading zone was in the back alley.
Correct.
Now, what we do know is, you know, the truckers have really indicated that it's pretty tight back there. My second, so that's the original. And then we were allowing a loading zone there, but was it an official loading zone?
So in regards to it being an official loading zone, all I know is at the time there was signs that indicated it was a loading zone. I don't know if the processes were followed and brought to council, whether that was approved through council. So that would be something we'd have to look into.
And do we know if those signs were owned by us or if they were installed by somebody else?
I'm not 100% sure, but that's something we can look into for sure.
Okay, and then maybe Wendy, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Excellent. I'm just curious if the issue really lays with the trucking companies that come. And I know in a lot of other businesses here in Crossfield and other places that the truckers sometimes have to load things a little further than, you know, that 10 feet or 20 feet away from a loading zone. And I'm curious if you've ever talked to them to see if they would be comfortable in loading from, you know, across the street or parking in the alley and then just coming down the sidewalk and in.
So my issue with that is, first of all, our 53-foot trucks don't have the turn radius to get into that back alley. So that's number one problem. Across the street, is that really feasible to have 4 skids of liquor brought across a crosswalk in the wintertime? Sorry, I've got a cat. As well, we can't bring it down the sidewalk because they weren't made wide enough and they weren't reinforced. As well, our doors don't swing open to the building, so they're on an angle, so we can't get a skid down the sidewalk to begin with. So that's our issue right now. First, I mean, the main thing is the 53-foot trailers cannot, they don't have that turn radius to get into that back parking lot.
Right, into the back. Okay.
If I may make a comment on that,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor. So as per council's request, we did extend that ramp itself for the actual driving area. So we did, I believe off the top of my head, I want to say we extended it about 2 meters. So that should help with that turning radius itself.
That sounds good. And that also helps with the bins that are there.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that has been completed.
I think that's all the questions I had for now. Thanks.
Councillor Cornell.
I'm just thinking because anytime I go up that street, it's full of parking. So in a way, I do kind of agree with Wendy. If they do try to turn out of that alley, there's too much traffic. They're not going to have the clearance.
Councillor Gustafson.
This is for you, Wendy. So if it was back to the way it was originally on the north side of the arches there, where a loading zone could be, how did they get the pallets from their truck to, like, from the road level up and to the sidewalk level?
So there's always been the rolled curb there. In the original drawings, which were approved, and then I personally talked to Scott, who was one of the foremen, I'm guessing, for the construction company. And it was at that point that we looked at the drawings, and it was a full curb with a sidewalk and a tree right in front of our receiving doors. It was at that time that we had conversations. I know my husband talked to Barry, talked to Mustafa, and they agreed that we could definitely roll that sidewalk because we have to have some way to get that product into our store. And being in a residential complex, obviously those are the only double doors we have access to. So it was agreed at that time to move the tree down a little bit and to roll that sidewalk so we could get our skids in the door.
Okay. So we're kind of in a bind here because it's, how do we change the whole aspect of the street? How often do you get, your skids in? Like,
So
do they always bring, a 53-foot highway van in, or do they bring body jobs in, or is there a possibility that or is it different suppliers all the time bringing different trucks?
So it's the same trucking companies every week. So we have Highway 9 that does our liquor deliveries on Fridays. And Cochrane Transport does our beer delivery on Tuesday, and those are both 53-foot trailers. We also have Big Rock and Sleeman deliveries, and those are done in 5-ton trucks, which are also done on Tuesdays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they probably have an easier way to park in the alley, as designated loading zone versus those big vans. I hear your concerns, Wendy. I wish we could, there was a simple solution. I know there isn't a simple solution, but we are in, what, and I hate to use this saying what's done is done right now, but I'm sure there's a solution that can work for the town and for yourselves. But Mustafa, you had a comment there?
Yes, we did. Sorry. So as it relates to the roll curb itself, when we had that discussion with Barry, he did indicate that those pallets need to come, and he said sometimes they use the roads to bring those pallets down. So just to accommodate the business, originally there was a tree right in front of the doors. So what we did was we moved the tree over, put a roll curb in, and we even put a concrete sidewalk itself so they could roll the pallets over to bring and make their delivery itself. So we made sure that it was a rolled curb and not a drop.
Yeah.
Because then the standards change and the requirements of everything changes around it. So we kept it as a rolled curb just to maintain access for the business to be able to bring their pallets in if the truck is further down, and utilize the road to bring those pallets right into the businesses.
Part of the challenge that I see, Wendy, is, and when there was several of us that went to an on-site and took a look at the arches in the building, and as luck would have it, you know, there was a delivery truck right there. But when they park, they're parked right up to the stop sign facing east. And then if you've got another vehicle that's coming east, there's no room for them. If they do move over, they're in the lane of westbound traffic, then they pull up to the stop sign. If somebody's heading north or south and trying to head west on that street, there's no room for them because you've got this big truck parked there. And then you've got this other vehicle trying to get out onto Railway Street. So even just the design of it, and I don't know that that was significantly safer prior to this undertaking, because I think that has always been an issue there. And I know it isn't much fun for them to have to run their pallets from the alley to that side door there. But I think there are locations, and I realize that sometimes in Crossfield, it's difficult to compare ourselves to other places, but I think there are places where they end up taking pallets and a delivery, taking them a further distance than what they're doing there. My last question, and that's just kind of a comment, but this is a question for Mustafa. Now, would the individual businesses have been notified, or would the condo board have been notified on this project?
As it relates to
all the changes, like the removal of the loading zone and you know, the parking and that kind of thing. Like because I saw Wendy shaking her head no on when you were talking about being notified. So I'm just wondering if it was the board and then it was the responsibility of the board to talk to the business owners, or whether we reached out to the business owners as well.
For sure. So we did reach out to the board and the business owners itself. We also understand that there's a difference between business owners and the property owners. So for anyone that we had contact information, we did send emails out to them. As well, we posted it online and everything like that. We also went to every single business. That's where the walkthrough came into it, because we do understand some of those, storefronts are not owned by the actual businesses that are actually housed there. So we tried our best to get a hold of as many people as we can that are affected by the project. Could I say with 100% certainty that we connected 100% of the people? Absolutely not, because of course there's always going to be one that got missed here and there.
Mayor, if I may, if I have another comment, is it a possibility? I guess maybe it's just a question for you, Mustafa. When we revitalized that portion of the street, did we widen the sidewalk at all?
So when it came to the sidewalk, we didn't really widen the sidewalk. What we did is because there's a little bit extra room, we added that extra meter of that boulevard space. So if you remember
where the grass is, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So what if, I guess, you know, and I'm not sure what the cost of it is to investigate, is to actually turn it back to the way parallel parking on the north side, and then, you know, to be able to cut in a couple of stalls on the south side, the arches side. I don't know what the cost would be, you know, just to kind of get rid of the grass or a portion of, you know, a couple, 3 stalls or whatever, and then just revert it back to parallel parking on that side, and then move the center line so that it would allow for that loading zone. Do you know where I'm getting at?
I do have a comment on that. So I don't know if you recall, Councillor Gustafson, when council met over there with the two gentlemen, we did discuss that. And was it Mike from Stantec was there? And we asked that question. And what his answer was, it still doesn't allow enough room to have a loading zone or parking stalls on that side. In addition to the angle parking on the other side, there's just no room, even with that additional meter, to expand that where it would be safe to have an unloading zone, nor would it be enough room for a couple of parking stalls.
No, but what I mean is
Back.
turn those angle back to parallel.
But then your loading zone is 53 feet on the south side. You've got no parking.
Well, I'm just trying to come up with a
Yeah,
solution here,
yeah.
but where I'm getting at is I know what Mike said, but he never thought about turning those cars back and go parallel parking and moving the center line of that road back to the original where it was.
Just to comment on that, Councillor Gustafson.
Yes.
We did, when we originally looked at the layout of the area that was there existing, based on the size of the truck itself, what was there existing was considered unsafe because the vehicles will still have to maneuver onto oncoming traffic to get around the trucks. Just because those trucks are a wider length itself. The other thing is with it itself is for the design spec that we used for the vehicles for downtown is we use the dually truck to make it easier for a rural community that has more trucks and everything like that. So we could look into it to see if that is a possibility based on our preliminary discussions that we've had about what is the cost of actually changing it back. How do we make it work? We were around the $300,000 mark, change that back into what it was, into a similar configuration. The reasoning behind it is for that grass area, we didn't pack the bottom of it with road gravels and all the bases that are already in the road. And we'd have to go a lot slower just because we have all the concrete work in there.
Mm-hmm.
So roughly when we did the numbers in our internal construction meeting, we were around that $300,000 mark, if not more. And again, that's a really high level estimate. So when it relates to that, but we also looked at the road configuration based on what the size we would need for a loading zone of a truck. So the loading zone size for a truck is a lot bigger than for a loading zone of a vehicle.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
prior to that, the loading zone was designed for vehicles only, not for commercial vehicles.
So originally it was, so, but were we having troubles with before the changes?
Yeah. Yes.
We were
There
having
were
trouble
people
before.
stuck in there
Yeah.
because the delivery truck would be there. There'd be somebody
Yeah.
parked beside him and they couldn't get
Yeah.
out.
So if I might, I have a question to Wendy and then a possible solution that maybe staff can look into.
For sure.
So Wendy, how long does it take to typically for those trucks to unload?
15, 20 minutes.
15 to 20 minutes? Mustafa, I'm just curious if you can look into, if a truck were to unload there, what safety precautions can that trucking company put into place while they're loading to either, close that section of the road off for the 15 or 20 minutes and put signage up every time they unload? What does that look like? What would meet the standards? And maybe bring that back to council and see if that is a feasible solution.
That makes sense. Yep, we could do that for sure.
Okay, and then maybe work with Wendy to see what days and how many times on the Tuesday maybe a delivery is made.
And Wendy, it's fairly consistent on your deliveries, right?
It absolutely is. I mean, the times change slightly depending on how many deliveries they have in the day, because our liquor truck goes all the way to Olds and then circles back and does Crossfield last. So we are actually his last stop. They're actually starting this Friday to try to get, he's going to do his route opposite just because I have staff Fridays is our busiest day, obviously. And I asked him if there was any way he could get there early because he's not getting there until 5:30. He's going to do the route backwards, so he'd be there at noon every Friday, which is a lot less traffic as well on that street. And then our beer truck usually comes between 2:30 and 4. That's kind of always the window on Tuesdays.
Yeah, I wonder if there's some sort of easement we can, provide this business that's, providing, employment for our residents. I think there's something we can do.
Well, I think the biggest thing is if we're going to allow anything, it has to be in the safest way possible for, everybody that's driving and walking on those streets. Even the walkers with the truck there are impacted.
Mhm.
So if we can look at something like that, I don't know if it'll be a solution for you, Wendy, but we can at least try to see if we can come up with an option.
You know what? And I really appreciate you guys looking at that. We were just very frustrated because we were never notified that was never a loading zone. I mean, we bought an existing liquor store that had been there. It's been there since the arches were built. So it's been in there for 12 years. And to buy it 2.5 years ago, and be now faced with this when we've got, $1 million of our personal money invested in it. Sorry.
That's okay. If it helps, I'll buy more beer.
We're very grateful to the town of Crossfield. You guys have supported us, and Crossfield's been very good to us. Obviously, we're expanding for a second time. We're very excited about that. We're going to be about 4,300 square feet all said and done. We've been very, very blessed to be in Crossfield. We love it here. We do own that bay, Mustafa, just so you know. We are the owners of that bay as well as the business. And we're leasing the other 2 bays from John Verhagen with the intent to buy that within the next 6 months as well. So we will actually own 3 bays in that building. Obviously, we don't want to move our business. We don't want to move out of Crossfield. We're just very frustrated, obviously. Like I said, with $1 million of personal money invested in the business. And it's just now kind of coming to the point where we can start drawing any money out of the business. So, I appreciate any considerations you can give us. Like I said, we were just never notified that it wasn't a loading zone to begin with when we bought it. And there hasn't been an issue up until this revitalization. And I mean, we were impacted huge, for a full month during that construction. Just during the month of August, when we were closed down on all sides, we lost literally $100,000 in sales that month. That's a lot for a small business to lose. We've been, like I said, we've been very blessed with Crossfield, not without frustrations, obviously. But yeah, we just need to come up with something. Those trailers do not fit down that back alleyway. And we just need to get our product. If we can't get our product, we don't have a store. With no store, we have no livelihood. So we will really appreciate if you guys could just do a little bit of research.
Okay, super.
Thanks, Wendy.
Any
Thank
last
you so
questions
much,
for
guys.
Wendy?
Have a good day.
Thanks a lot, Wendy.
Okay, bye.
Thanks, Wendy.
Okay. All right. So that gives you some direction. We don't need any motions on it.
No.
I don't think.
No, I don't
That'll
think
just
there's
be
a
a
motion.
We'll bring
Now, do you
another
want-
report in relation
Sure.
to that component itself and come up with a couple solutions and what that looks like.
Yeah, and maybe involve Trevor as well.
Yes, we will.
Okay, great.
And do you want to go through the other recommendations? So or
Yeah.
other information?
Of course. If you don't
I
mind
think
me
we
going
can-
through those with you guys.
Go ahead.
This report has been brought to council previously. What we had done is after this report was brought to council, we did do a walkthrough with council to show them what these areas looked like and why administration came up with the recommendations that they did. So I'm just going to do a quick high-level summary of every single component and basically the discussions that were had. So the first one itself was Dave Swanson. He's the president of the Arches itself. His first request was the 15-minute loading zone to be changed back to a 15-minute loading zone. And his second request was that a handicap stall be eliminated on Railway Street itself. Again, administration's recommendations were to decline the 15-minute loading zone and to decline the removal of the handicap stall. The compromise for the handicap stall that was made by administration and council was to move that further north. So that was moved further north and it's already been constructed. The next one itself was So Lucy, she has a business on Nanton itself. That's where all the tattoo shop and everything like that is. She had requested that public parking be designated to a private business. Again, administration's recommendation was to decline this request. Reason being is we can't designate public parking for any private business itself. It can be utilized by anyone within the community or anyone that's within that area. The next request was from Giovanna she is the owner of Treasures for Troopers. We had a discussion about the 45-minute parking sign on Smith, I believe that's Smith over there. So the one thing we do want to mention is Giovanna is no longer at that bay itself and everything has been removed. But her request was to switch that 45 minutes to a 2-hour parking. What administration had also recommended is if we put any time limits, that we indicate that the time limits are for all the stalls, just so we're being fair to anyone that's utilizing any of the stalls. And going from that perspective itself, I believe council was in favor of that as well. So it's up to council if they want to maintain that 45 minutes parking signs that's there right now, or they want to convert that over to a 2-hour parking, being that the business has now moved. We still kept our recommendation as 2 hours, but that could be gone back to 45 minutes itself. The next component itself was Crossfield Laundry. So Crossfield Laundry itself basically had indicated that they'd like the parking that's right next to the pharmacy over there to be switched to a 2-hour parking. So we contacted the pharmacy owner as well, had a discussion with them, and they stated that they really need the 45-minute parking rather than the 2-hour parking, just because they would like to have a constant flow of traffic because a lot of their patients use that area to see the doctor. The other component is we don't have the second 45-minute sign up, so it's really hard to be enforced. We will have that sign up once the sign guys get in. Hopefully that's going to be within the next couple of weeks here. And that will be a legally enforced area, which will be 45 minutes. What we had indicated to both of the business owners is we will grab their feedback afterwards. If it is not working for any of them, we'll sit down and see if we can find a second solution for them, whether that be we extend the time, decrease the time, or whatever that may be. We will do that at that point, and it'll be brought back to council for a decision at that point. They're both in agreement on that. The other thing the liquor store indicated was they had a concern with the delivery of the liquor store itself, saying that those semi trucks are blocking their business at a 45-minute increment. They basically stated every time that they've seen a truck come there, it's been roughly 45 minutes or longer. And sometimes they're parking to oncoming traffic. And they're saying that even if their customers want to try to, take the quick way, we'll say, they can't because their business is being blocked, and they don't think that's fair that their business is being blocked at a 45-minute.
So which business, sorry, Mustafa?
This is Crossfield Laundry.
Oh, the laundry, sorry, I thought it was liquor store, sorry. Okay.
Yeah. So that was their comment. They just wanted that comment to be relayed back to council as it related to that component itself. Of course, they want the loading zone as well, but they say, it should be a 15-minute loading zone if there is a loading zone ever put back in there. And then again, our last component itself was Barry's request for the loading zone itself, which council's direction has been to go look for a solution to what is required from the truck drivers to be able to do that. So what we'll do is we'll do an investigation to see if it's even possible based on the road allocation that we have right now, make sure that vehicles can still move freely. And the one question I will have is, for that itself, for the downtown project, we utilize the dually as a design vehicle. Would you guys still like us to utilize the dually as the design vehicle for that street, or do you want us to drop that standard down to a standard car?
Is the main drag designed by a dually? Because I passed a dually the other day and we almost touched mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the main drag. Yeah. So basically,
Really? Okay.
both the roads and the parking stalls are both designed for dualies itself. So there should be enough room that you guys can get through. Technically, 2 dualies can get side by side, and they shouldn't be hitting one another. The parking stalls as well. So what we've noticed is the parking stalls are too big, so they will be made a little bit smaller, and we're going to test it out to see how the smaller parking does in comparison. And then if an adjustment needs to be made to the parking side, we'll do it the following year again till we get a size that everybody's comfortable with. Because what we've noticed right now is some people aren't even following the lines; they're just parking where they want to park.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would rather keep it at the Dooley. Like we're a small town, we have rural
Yeah, we
people
do.
coming into town.
I do find it interesting that Crossfield Laundry says that the liquor deliveries are 45 minutes and yet Wendy says 20 minutes at the longest. So I wonder which one of the two it really is. 'Cause
It's
that-
close to 25 minutes. I've seen it before. It's close to 25 to 30 minutes. I've
is
seen it.
Okay,
To unload 4 pallets is like, say it's 5-6 minutes a pallet. It's not hard to do the math.
okay.
And so maybe when you're looking into that as well, some of those solutions. And we're gonna have to put some parameters around this, and there's no way they can park there for 45 minutes to unload something and stop traffic for that long. So look into that. And then I don't know if staff could even come back with any other options that you might have or suggestions or something else other than the one proposed.
For sure.
Yeah.
The one thing is we will also check with Stantec as well, just to get their input and get them to see if they can, if there's anything that they can think of. Again, it's a company of 100,000 people. Maybe somebody has an idea that somebody isn't thinking over here.
Right.
So we'll engage them to see if they have any out of the box ideas for this as well.
That don't cost 300 grand.
That don't cost 300 grand.
Mustafa, how many parking stalls are applied to that 45-minute parking?
The 45-minute parking, I believe, is 6 stalls.
6 stalls?
Off the
Now, my only concern about the 45 minutes is I've been to that doctor's office before and they're fantastic people, but sometimes you're in that doctor's office for more than 45 minutes.
Yeah.
If you have to wait, what I don't want to see is Trevor having to A, write tickets, or B, deal with people complaining about him writing tickets. I think 45 minutes is a pretty tight window in downtown Crossfield. Like, are those spots that busy that we need to force people to move every 45 minutes? Is that the information we have been given?
So for the parking stalls itself, first of all, there has to be a complaint made that, hey, this person has parked there for 45 minutes, at which point Trevor will mark their tires and he'll come back 45 minutes later. So realistically, it's
90
technically an hour and a half, at which point that it's up to council if they'd like administration to look at the time limit. The only thing was the owner of the pharmacy itself indicated that they want that 45-minute parking just for their, I guess, the individuals that are coming to see the doctor. My recommendation would be to keep it at 45 minutes. And what we'll do is we'll keep an eye on it this summer, see what it is. If Trevor is getting a call every 2 seconds saying, hey, this person's parking there, well, of course, then we'll have to find a solution that works for everybody. But again, it's more like an hour and a half because based on the conversations I've had, they have to mark it and it's 45 minutes from the moment they mark it.
That's the downfall of the 2 hour as well.
Exactly.
Mhm.
It technically becomes 4 hours.
Yeah.
As long as my concern, I just want to have Trevor in a situation where he's
Right.
just
Yeah.
dealing with tires all the time. It's
Yeah, I
a
know.
waste of manpower. That's
Yeah,
all.
for
Of
sure.
course, we will. What I'll do is I'll talk to Trevor and we'll have that conversation to
Good.
make sure. And if it is something that he's constantly being called every 2 seconds, maybe then it's something that we bring to council a lot sooner than next year.
Right.
But we'll do that based on year and see what complaints we get on that
Because
itself.
there isn't a big ticket cost to change that either way, right? Like there's
No,
not a,
all we'll do is basically where it says 45 minutes, we'll just take a scraper, take off the 45 minutes and switch it into a 2 hour.
okay, perfect.
So
Thank you.
Be a couple dollars just to switch the stickers, I'll say.
Even
Thank you.
if we almost went to an hour, that would give people like 2 hours. That would
Mhm.
almost be, that would give a little more time. That'd be an extra half an hour. That might be worth considering rather than going 2 hours.
For sure.
Go
That-
now.
That'll be something we'll investigate over the summer, and that'll be, and if it does need to be brought to council sooner, we will bring it and have that discussion.
And
but-
request number 2 is dealt with.
Yes.
Request number 3 basically is dealt with because public parking isn't designated for a business.
No,
Request number 4, do we really want to, I know we kind of talked about the 2 hour thing, but do we want to go 2 hours there? Or do we want to, I mean, if there's no business there right now, then who would be complaining? But to your point, if somebody wants to get picky, then an hour and a half later, they could be phoning Trevor whether there's a business there or not.
except for it's really 90 minutes.
I would just leave it.
Just-
I would leave it at the 45 as well.
So the only question then is by the liquor store and the drugstore, but you're going to take a look at that whole intersection and bring back another report anyway, right?
We just
For
want to look at the
For sure. So basically.
number 5.
So we didn't put a recommendation for the liquor store itself. Basically, that was for the loading zone for the laundromat itself.
Right.
So that was declined itself. But what we'll do is, we didn't actually put a recommendation for the liquor store because we want to have that conversation with council and basically kind of see where we go from there. But we've got direction on that, so we'll look into that and find the best solution and see if we can get a good solution for the business and that works for everybody.
And so then part of that investigation on the liquor store would include the laundry mat, because if the
Yes.
deliveries are actually blocking them for 45 minutes, whatever we do to the liquor store is going to impact these guys.
Exactly. So what we'll do is we'll do an analysis, and what we'll do is we'll basically do a SWOT analysis, basically indicating what the strengths, weaknesses, and everything are for that area, taking into consideration all the businesses and not just the liquor store.
Yeah.
So we will present a broader picture for council, taking into account the liquor store, the laundromat, and as well as the pharmacy across the street, because all of them will be impacted based on what we decide to do for the arrangement of that area.
Is there a possibility when we're looking for other options? I know there is currently no parking northbound on Railway, but it would be a shorter distance for the liquor deliveries to be allowed to park there, which would at least give a little bit more visibility than the T intersection for them to stop, emergency lights on, whatever the safety requirements are. And I realize they might not like having to cross Railway, but I think that isn't that difficult.
For sure.
And then just we've got the rolled sidewalks up to that door. I realize they think their door doesn't open quite right, but it would possibly be a lot safer because you've got a much clearer line of traffic, like a
I don't know if there's
I
that
don't know
much,
about
though. I
that.
think they would
Well, I
have
don't know.
to use the same safety precautions as they would on the side street.
Yeah, true.
So the
Yeah.
conversation that we've had for where they can load on Railway is that parking area that's over there. We have parking area that they can go into, grab their loads. There is basically ramps that you can come down, so it's not like they're going through, there's no, I guess you could say ramps. So there'll be a ramp that they can go off of, go onto the other ramp, still make their delivery.
Can they come in and they can come in and out of that parking
Exactly.
area too?
So
Yeah,
we
that parking lot.
basically designed the entrances for the trucks on that because that was one of the things that we kind of put on our back pocket in case the concern comes up that they can't come into that back alley, that we can indicate that they can go into that parking area that we have, which was the former Imperial Oil site.
But originally there was only an in and you had to go in and out of the same, but we've made the second one so they can come in and then go out.
Yes, I'd have to double check. There's been a lot of changes around those areas. I don't want to 100% say it's one way or another, but I'm pretty sure there's two entrances where they can
Well,
do
there
it.
is, because I had to bring my truck over to Daryl's the other day and by the old grocery store there, you can pull in there. Now, whether that is a temporary or a temporary access because of construction, but it is an access and otherwise you access it basically just beside the drugstore.
And even within that area, being that it's a parking lot itself, it gives the trucks the ability to go back and forward, even if it is one entrance, being that it's such a large parking spot, those trucks are able to go back and forward and get in and out quite safely compared to, if you're trying to do that maneuver on a road with vehicles constantly coming in.
Yeah, and I guess something else for us to consider, I know the truckers like to deliver at the easiest access point and do from there. It's a lot quicker for them. But will they actually stop delivering because they have to deliver another 50 yards or 100 feet or whatever that distance is?
I would say no, but maybe Councilor Gustafson wants to chime in.
I don't think they would.
It's like you guys are thinking about them going into the Imperial lot, right?
Mhm.
Unloading there.
And across.
But if they're unloading pallets, they're going to have a pallet truck. And there's no way to do that unless you pave that
Yeah.
that yard. It's impossible. And unloading on Railway Street, that's a bad idea.
Okay. I was just thinking because you have a lot easier
Yeah,
line of vision.
I think Deputy Mayor Harris's idea of, if there's always, big trucks maybe unloading on streets and they put cones out and they're unloading equipment or they're unloading something. And, if you can have it on a regular basis, I know it's not an ideal situation, but it is a bit of a workaround. And, you know, maybe we have it's a trial basis, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, then we revert back to, I think it actually is safer than putting 53-foot highway vans down that back alley with those power poles there.
Mhm.
I think that's a bad idea, is putting those big trucks back there. Even, you know, the body jobs, it's not so bad, but you know, a highway tractor and a highway van, that's recipe for disaster with the infrastructure that's back there already. So,
Just
What
to interrupt you there,
It's
sorry,
it's
Counselor.
tight back there.
yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Mustafa.
Yeah, no, I have an idea right now in my mind, but I want to actually simulate it and make sure it works before I actually present it. And it has to more do with the area itself, but just to kind of explain what I'm thinking right now is maybe what I'm considering is that area right up front, make it a loading zone for a specific time where they can, where the parking is, where Imperial Oil is,
Where the
make
angle
it,
parking is.
yeah, say from, 11 o'clock to 12 o'clock, it's a loading zone. And they just have to basically make sure their trucks come along that area. And what we do is create a concrete pad to where they can offload and go right onto the sidewalk, where they can have a hard surface to connect all the way through. But I have to double check and make sure it works.
Because I think you're going to involve, I was just going to say the same thing, but I think you're going to involve that accessible parking stall, which may impact how many parking stalls you've got. But you're thinking if they're southbound on railway, that they actually pull in and over where all the angle parking is in front of the arches there?
No, I was saying they'd go right into the gravel parking. And along that gravel parking, we give them, say, a 2-meter wide concrete pad or something, where
Okay.
that's where the back of the truck would be. And they can load it onto that concrete sidewalk, which is already connected to the sidewalk, which is connected to the ramp that will go all the way through. That's kind of the idea that I kind of came up with in my mind right now.
Okay.
But I'll look at a couple different options and we'll see what works and see what the impact is overall to everybody. And that'll be at council's discretion which idea they'll come. We'll try to see to bring a couple different concepts to council itself,
Yeah. Mhm.
and then council can decide which one's best.
And can we, okay, so my thought is different then. So southbound on railway, those angle parking stalls, can we make that a loading zone during those hours? Or can we not do that? Like, I'm just thinking then they would pull in and come in.
My biggest thing is I want to get them off the road and get them in that parking area. 'Cause
Yeah, I
it just
know.
makes it a lot safer.
Yeah.
And
And then what do you do if there is somebody there?
Exactly.
And the impact to the other businesses
I know.
too for that
I know.
period of time, yeah.
But they're already impacting the drugstore and the laundromat. So, I mean,
Kind of.
yeah, you know,
Yeah.
it's.
We need them just to all get along. We're all in this together, so.
We'll come up with a couple concepts. and hopefully-
Or we can ask.
Thanks,
that works.
Mustafa.
Yeah.
Okay, so anything further that we want Mustafa to look at, or I think we've given him enough direction for taking another look at everything.
I think I'm good.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Okay,
Thanks.
Thanks, Mustafa.
all right. Okay, Mayor and Councillors business. Today I had the South Central Alberta mayors. We got together, again, talking COVID as we do all the time. They have put to, we had a presentation on policing costs, the conversation around replacing RCMP with provincial police. If anybody's interested, I have the survey results that they put together. It's interesting, good reading. So far, it seems like the majority of people want to keep the RCMP. One of the concerns about the current COVID is the long weekend. People going out the Sundre Cremona area, the thousands of people they expect out there. They're pretty worried about, you know, what that might mean for their healthcare facilities out there. So hopefully people are very well behaved and that doesn't become an issue. Other than that, there wasn't really any highlights out of there. My other reports are as listed there. And that's all I have. So Deputy Mayor Harris.
Sure. So first of all, congratulations to the 2 new councillors.
Yes.
I look forward to working with you guys on council and
Thanks.
yeah. And the other item of business I have is we've been in the process of looking for a headhunter to hire to help us with the CEO position. And we've gone through the process of an RFQ. They've been scored and we have come up with one. And at this time, I'd like to make a motion that Council of the Town of Crossfield appoint Leaders International Executive Search to proceed with recruitment services for a Chief Administrative Officer for the Town of Crossfield, and that the town enter into a memorandum of understanding with Leaders International Executive Search.
Okay, all in favor of that motion? Carried.
And that concludes my,
Thank you. Councillor Gustafson.
Again, congratulations again to the new councillors. It's glad to see, and I said before, I'm glad to see a full room here, and we hope all the best for you. And just going through the planning meeting with the auditors and the meet and greet yesterday with the new council members.
Perfect. And I apologize. It isn't that I don't intend to congratulate the two of you. I forgot to put that on my list. So looking forward to working with you both as well. And administration operations update.
Oh, sorry, I just had one last thing. Rocky View Foundation, we got a notice from Carol this late last week that everything's kind of been finalized and we should be getting the Hamptons in on May the 31st.
Perfect.
So very exciting.
Yes.
And hope to get renovation started over there and get some new seniors in, duly needed. So
100%.
I'm just curious, Mayor Tennant, if I don't know if the new councillors have something to say. I don't know what kind of an update they might have, but if you guys want to say something, I think
that's a good idea. Thank you.
Put you on the spot.
Still in the learning mode.
Either one.
No, I'll save all my stuff up for 2 weeks. I'll start a collection list.
Sounds good. Okay. Don't hesitate to do so. Administrative operations update.
So as council's aware, I provided you with an additional report this meeting that is outside of the council agenda. And if council's okay, I will read through the report just for the public's sake. Okay, so the subject of this report is a building lease opportunity with OP Banner Productions, Inc. So the town has been approached by a location scout, Mr. Ken Noda, to work together again. And as you may remember, Ken Noda was the location scout that the town partnered with for the Ghostbusters film that was filmed in 2019. This time we have the pleasure of working with Ken Noda more directly in the sense that he is very interested in entering into a lease agreement with the town of Crossfield from June to November approximately for a TV mini-series called Under the Banner of Heaven for FX Network. And this mini-series is based on a true story and the book of the same name by John Krakauer. The location of interest is, of course, the vacant CIBC building, and using the similar rates as provided by Dave Swanson and Don Sackett in April, while determining the fair market value of costs for the church space, the cost ranges between $3 to $27 per square foot. Looking through our records, we note the size of the CIC building to be as follows. So the ground floor is 1,071 square feet. The second floor is 960 square feet. The addition, which is the portion between ATB and the old portion of the CIBC building, that is 801 square feet. So the total is 2,832 square feet. When determining a fair market value for the rental costs, the following should be considered. So currently the building is vacant. There is no immediate plan to renovate for the town's use. Currently the washrooms in the building are in the basement and are not operational.
What about the one upstairs? Well, it isn't connected to water anymore, is it?
No, it's not
That's right.
connected. We feel that it's a great economic opportunity for Crossfield. And currently the monthly costs that the town incurs for power and electricity total $475. It is thought that this is a great opportunity for the community by hosting the production team with the potential that it be a recurring location. Considering the current condition and occupancy of the CIBC building, administration has made 3 options available to council for consideration. 2 options falling below the cost ranges. These options are provided because of the consideration provided and that it's in its current state, it's unrentable without renovations. So Ken Noda, the location scout, has requested administration to provide rental costs for the vacant CIBC building. An external stakeholder potentially impacted would be neighboring properties, and we would ask the production company to mitigate. So option 1 would be to enter into a lease agreement at $1 per square foot. So we would be looking at charging $2,832 a month plus utility costs. The pros to this option would be that it's a great economic opportunity for the town. It puts the town on the map, and the vacant building on Railway Street would be utilized. A potential con for this suggestion would be potential traffic congestion. Option 2 would be to offer at a $2 per square foot cost plus utilities, which would equal $5,664 a month. And again, the same condition or the same pros and cons being that it's a great opportunity for the town, puts the town on the map, vacant building on Railway Street is being utilized, and again, potential traffic congestion. And the final option would be to charge $3 a square foot, totaling $8,469 per month plus utility costs with the same pros and cons. So administration's recommendation, based on the information provided, we respectfully recommend that council consider option 1 to allow the interim CAO to propose to enter into an agreement with OP Banners Production Inc. for the following rental cost, whereby the building is 2,832 square feet at $1 per square foot, plus $475 of utility costs, totaling over a 6-month period of $19,842. So this would be for a 6-month period. And we would also request that should the rental agreement need to be extended outside the term of June to November 2021, that the newly appointed CAO have the discretion to negotiate new terms if need be. And that's my report.
I just have one question. Do they know there's no functioning washrooms in the building?
He's toured the building.
Sorry?
He has toured the building with
Okay.
Joe Holstein, so I'm pretty sure he's aware.
And there's no, like, so is there a reason there's no water in there? Just curious. I don't actually know the answer to that.
So because the building has been occupied, it was turned off
Yeah.
at the street, and I believe currently the water meter is broken.
If it was needed to turn on, can it be turned on?
Yes, it would be very simple to do. We would have to replace the meter and it could be turned on.
Questions?
Yeah, I just have one question. Have we considered the impact of the downtown construction for those first June month?
Yeah, so from what I'm understanding, as Mustafa has stated, the construction is projected to be finished July 31st. Ken is very aware of what's happening on Main Street. So we would ask that he connect with the property owners north of the building, so that empty lot, so that if they needed parking, they at least would have that empty lot.
That sounds good. So I think our residents would be looking forward to something. This could be something that they can look forward to. I also think that it will bring a positive economic impact to our local businesses and, put Crossfield on the map once again, just like Ghostbuster did. So I think it's a positive thing.
There was a lot of community interest with Ghostbusters like
Yeah.
that, but that really created a positive atmosphere for
Yeah.
sure. Any other comments, questions?
Well, Deputy Mayor Harris stole my thunder because
You're welcome.
she always does that. As we were just talking about parking downtown, this will probably create some challenges for parking. So hopefully we can get ahead of that curve before it becomes an issue.
So I think when Ghostbusters was filming here, they did a really good job.
Yes.
And I'm sure that they can achieve that this time around. But again, we will really put their attention to that empty lot across the street. And Carmen too is not too far away with his empty lot. So I believe they could partner with him as well.
Certainly. Thank you.
And I don't think that it would be a real huge negative impact if we moved those parking blocks in on the property a bit. I realize they'd be parking on the grass, but it isn't like it's a park area either. So that for that 6 months, you know, if we needed to do that, I'm sure we could.
You would
then
ask-
They could park 2 vehicles, one behind each other too.
So always when they rent a property, they have to restore the property back to, and we would ask them to, if there
Right.
was damage to the grass.
Right, yeah. Any
I'm
other-
just curious, Meryl. And maybe this is kind of outside of the box of what we should be talking about, but when we bring opportunities like this into town, I'm curious, aside from the rental, what kind of community things would they be willing to interact with Crossfield? And when I say that, I'm always thinking of maybe the kids, or can they do something, whether like it's an autograph thing, or can they have a kids day where they kind of interact with them and just build that excitement, something
Well,
like that.
Yeah, when Ghostbusters was here, I know at the end of every day for shooting, they made, the stars would come out and actually autograph. So that was made available. I can certainly talk to Ken. You know, I'm sure through his production company, they've maybe had these questions before. It was not something that was considered previously, but we can have that conversation.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
Even something similar.
And I think too, that with Ghostbusters, a lot of the gas they bought here, I know they were buying lots of food here. They'd set up here. So I think there was a huge spin-off as well, but that wouldn't hurt to post as well for information if they did the same thing this time.
We can certainly make that request.
Sure. Okay. And what is council's wish on the rental of $1, $2, or $3?
I'll make a motion
Okay.
to accept the recommendation of administration to go with option 1.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
That is carried.
And the only other thing I have to add is the banners are going up tomorrow morning
Okay.
on Railway Street.
Okay.
Woo. So we're going to see a lot of color.
Sounds good. Correspondence is listed there. Can I have a motion that we accept the correspondence for information?
I'll move that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any gallery questions? Sorry?
To all of us, Lindsay?
Okay, it didn't come through. Oh, there. Sorry, Lindsay, I don't see anything. I've been having, oh yeah, it doesn't think it's hooked up here.
In-person asked the question, how often is that parking not delivered for the team? I just if it's also who's cost of clearing and parking lot it is going.
Okay.
It's a good question that we can have Mustafa look into as well.
Yeah, I think that'll be part of the overall discussion and possible secondary solutions.
Yeah, I think we field that to Mustafa and then
Yeah.
he get back to us
Yeah.
at a later date.
And finally, who's responsible for that before, right? Because it was maintained before.
Well, the parking lot itself, I mean, we just basically plow the snow. That's all that's done there.
Yeah, so what maybe Councillor Knight and Councillor Cornelison don't know is, so currently the parking lot across from the arches there, that empty lot.
Yep.
The town is in a lease agreement with them, with that property owner. So this company, Imperial Oil, has agreed to allow the town to park there. So the town is on the hook for all the maintenance. So the town clears all the snow.
No, I mean, in regards to the question was, who's gonna be, if they put that back to a loading zone, is that not the question, Lindsay? Like where the loading zone is right now?
No,
he's
the
talking-
parking
he's
lot
talking about
across
parking
the,
lot. The Imperial, yeah, the
Okay.
Imperial
Royal.
lot there.
Gotcha.
And one of the reasons that we haven't paved it is because we don't own it. And we did have administration come back with an estimate for the paving, and it just is not reasonable for the property.
Yeah,
we don't
so
own.
actually, that's right. So last year, because we have the contractors in town, we asked them what the cost was to pave it, and it's, because it's not our property, it's not a good investment for the town.
that's correct.
Yeah, and we need to keep the air holes and all
Wasn't
that
it-
other kind of stuff too, so
I think it was 80K to pave that.
I
Yeah.
believe so.
If you don't put a hole in the ground, right?
Sorry, what was that?
No, there'd be no chance. It'd be more than that, wouldn't it? Because you'd have to look under the ground of it.
No, that's what they
That's
came
what they
back.
came
I
back
can't
as.
remember what
with
the amount
80K.
was, but we did have it checked out. And again, because we don't own the property,
Yeah.
it didn't seem to be a good investment for everyone. Okay, under upcoming events and programs, it's referring to the Crossfield Farmers Market.
Was that the only question?
And just if anybody had a chance, I'm not sure. I did volunteer at the spring market on Saturday. Amazing turnout. People were standing in line for up to an hour, I heard, to get in. I was kind of the gatekeeper at the door. 5 people at a time could come in. Then we were, 5 people in the smallest room, and then we would feed them through to the other rooms. There was of all the, we should have counted how many hundreds of people went through there, because there had to be several hundred, because they were lined up from 10 o'clock right until 3:30. Finally, there wasn't a lineup. And there was only one person that did not wear a mask. Everybody was masked. Everybody was more than happy with the explanation as to why it was taking as long as it did. And I haven't heard feedback from Cheryl on how the vendors did, but they had to do better than no market. So all in all, it went well. And the summer market opens June 3rd, I believe is the day. So other than that, rural women in business coming up. And if there's nothing else, motion to adjourn. I'll make that motion.
Okay.